Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Grand Prix Retrospective, a series where I look back through the earliest years and decades of what we know and love to be the sport of motor racing. In the last episode, which is in the description, I briefly described the pioneering years of organized automobile competition during the immediate years after the turn of the 20th century, talking about how the discipline of motor racing developed from a struggling novelty into the beginnings of a proper sport. In this episode, we will be looking in detail through several high-profile races that occurred in 1906, which marks a watershed year for many forms of motorsport, such as sports car racing, junior motorsport, and of course, Grand Prix racing. In 1906, technical innovation would present itself in several fields, the foremost competitions on the planet would be greatly restructured, and the audiences for each of these types of racing would grow larger from all around the world. Without further ado, this is 1906. Let's start with something a little bit different. As a country in the early 1900s, Italy's motorsport presence is an unconventional one to say the least. By 1906, Italians had only been represented in the Gordon Bennett Cup twice, and in the second of those years, Italy gave the established automotive giants of France, Germany, and Great Britain a proper run for their money. But what about the racing that is actually happening in Italy? Well, unlike Great Britain, where racing of any kind is banned, and in France, where all racing is very expansive, Italy's racing roots came from small places. Many of their competitions were straight-line sprints and single-circuit skirmishes running through suburban neighborhoods, very rarely organizing intercity races, even remotely on the scale of the French. However, as described in the introductory episode, the 1903 Gordon Bennett Cup came along and proved itself to be a massive success. In response, several Italian auto clubs decided to take their own closed-circuit races a few steps further to keep up. One such auto club was the Auto Club of Brescia, who organized the Coppa Brescia in 1904, attracting several Italian and foreign manufacturers. However, the race itself didn't take many risks in its format, and a mere 9 entries were received across 5 manufacturers, so few people took the race seriously, which would be reflected in its lack of promotion. Even so, some were fascinated by this race. A wealthy young Italian count by the name of Vincenzo Florio saw the potential of the Coppa Brescia and wanted to increase its prestige. He decided to sponsor the event, offering 50,000 lire in prize money for the whole weekend, as well as a trophy designed by the best sculptors in Paris. It was believed at the time that more prize money and a better trophy would lead to better turnout. The Auto Club of Brescia responded in kind by renaming their race the Coppa Florio. Florio's charity work seemed to succeed, as 2 of the foremost French manufacturers, Lorraine Dietrich and Targa, sent full teams of cars to the event, as well as Fiat and Itala sending more cars than in the previous year. A part-time racing driver himself, Vincenzo Florio was impressed with his efforts done for this Brescia race, but for 1906, he wanted a longer event alongside it. Florio wanted this new event to be the foremost racing event in Italy, something far greater than the modest Brescia Cup could provide. Florio would attend the 1905 Gordon Bennett Cup, and it is likely from this point that he was inspired to devise his own circuit. In layman's terms, Florio sees it and thinks, I want to try it myself. And so, Vincenzo Florio created a closed circuit through the middle of his native land, Sicily. The circuit would begin at Campo Felice di Rocella in the north coast, going all the way through the Madonia Mountains, then returning to the coast for a total of 92 miles, a truly massive circuit. The competitors would run this course for 3 laps. He would also create a plaque out of solid gold as the ultimate prize for winning the event, as well as making a VIP grandstand which would look over the entire valley. The name for this race? Well, since Florio's plaque, or the Targa as it's called in Italian, was the ultimate prize for the event, it made sense to name the race after it, and hence came the term Targa Florio. This race would also be notable for mandating production vehicles. Each car needed a minimum weight of 1,300 kilograms, cost no more than 20,000 French francs, which equates to 85,000 euros, and to have at least 10 models built. The organizers would audit the official selling price for each car to verify its legality at the start of the race. As such, the Targa Florio is one of the first examples of a race which is properly defined in terms of what type of car it is racing. Indeed, in modern terms, this is effectively a touring car rally. Upon promotion of the Targa Florio from the established French magazine L'Auto, the entry for the event was rather prestigious, as not only were full teams fielded by both Fiat and potent newcomers Itala, but reportedly 11 French entrants were received. Sadly, however, to the misfortune of the entire Targa Florio event, there will be a workers' strike in Genoa, preventing the feasible shipping of many of the cars, with everyone now forced to use other harbors. Only 4 of the French entries started the race, and Fiat could only send 1 car for their lead driver, Vincenzo Lancia. Itala would be the only manufacturer with a full contingent of vehicles, fielding their 40 horsepower model. Itala was an upstart manufacturer founded in Torino in 1904, with the main intent of making big racing vehicles. By 1906, their concern had expanded, with established Gordon Bennett Cup veteran Alessandro Cagno and pioneering aviator Baron Pierre de Cater as part of their driver roster. Anyways, with a few thousand eager onlookers watching, the cars were sent off in 10-minute intervals along the treacherous Madogne course. Fiat's Vincenzo Lancia took the early lead, before retiring during the second lap after his fuel tank was split in half. The competition would then be between the 2 Itala cars of Alessandro Cagno and Ettore Graziani. Despite several moves of aggression from Graziani, in the third lap, the calm resolve of Cagno would prevail. This meant that Cagno and Itala claimed victory in the inaugural running of the Targa Florio after 9 hours and 32 minutes of driving. Despite the obviously major setback of a truncated starting grid, the Italians viewed the Targa Florio as a successful event. The happenings in this race were heavily promoted in Italian newspapers, and the prestige of prizes offered from winning the event drew the attention of several auto clubs outside of Italy. Overall, a race worth seeing develop in the future. This concludes part 1 of this series. Part 2 will resume for the ACF Grand Prix, and it should be uploaded within the next week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the 1906 ACF Grand Prix.